she got so drunk that when he called the taxi to come pick her up, that he brought her to his truck to sit and wait for the taxi because he was done with her, and she attempted to, let's just say, mount the stick shift. And this is my first date with a man.
Whoa! As far as I can see, is that like modern dating is like old dating, but just much quicker. If you're on Tinder and you're swiping one way or the other, it's as if 20 years ago we were in a club just walking up and going, I like you, do you like me? No. Okay, we haven't matched, bye. And then just,
Exactly.
It would have been far more efficient to do it that way, but you would have looked really weird.
The very first comment I ever got on a profile, a dating site, was from a guy, and all he said was "nice jugs."
This is where I get confused, because obviously I'm from dating 20 years ago, and that was one of my best lines. You know what I mean? That was one of my icebreakers. There were camera phones around before me and my wife got together, but not. I mean, it was early. I mean, if you'd have taken a dick pic, it could have been anything. The quality of the camera on that, you're not even going to know it is a dick, let alone how good a one it is. Hello, and welcome to the Mildly Controversial podcast. This week, we have the Mildly Controversial Guide to Dating. Now, those of you who've listened to the podcast or watched the podcast for a while will know that Baz and I have been off the market for a significant amount of time. How long is it for you, Baz?
I think I'm 23 years.
Yeah, I'm 7 years. I mean, I've been married for 20, but I've been off the market for 7. So that's just a joke, ladies and gentlemen. And also my wife, if she's listening. Yes, clearly not. No, I've been off the market for 20 years as well. So that is a significant amount of time. And dating has changed massively in that time. So we wanted to get an expert on dating so we could give our opinions on dating, but also what it's like. So should the unfathomable happen, Baz, and either of us are back on the market anytime soon, I thought it'd be good for us to get some tips on how to do it, or more specifically, how not to do it. And we'll have a conversation about what modern dating is like versus dating when you and I were doing it, not with each other. That was very recent. So yes, our special guest today is the author of a book called "These Stories Are True, I Shit You Not." A humorous look at online dating for the unsuspecting older human. Baz and I are both older humans, so who better to get on to talk to us about this than Catherine Berra. Hello, Catherine.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very, very good and very excited to have you here. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Me too.
We're going to have to stretch into the hypothetical quite a lot on this one, because clearly Baz and I are very happily married to other people for the time being. But do you know what? This podcast is going very well, so it's only a matter of time. But yeah, we're both very, very happily married. So this is all theoretical and all hypothetical, but really, really interests me because, as I say, I've been with my wife for 20 years, so online dating was only just becoming a thing. Mm-hmm. And I never did it at all. I've never been on an online date, so really interested to hear from somebody who has done it as someone in our age group, but also have a conversation about what dating was like then, what it's like now, and the good and probably the bad about that sort of thing. So first things first, talk us through your book. Obviously the title is pretty self-explanatory, but talk us through your book, what it's about, who it's aimed at, and what inspired you to write it.
Oh, sure. Well, I was a single mom for a long time, and I didn't really date too much. My son, I raised him pretty much by myself. So when he took off for college, I was working in Washington, D.C., and friends convinced me to try online dating. So they helped me do the profile. And I was working for a very politically prominent philanthropist in D.C. So the man I was looking for is going to be able to go to these crazy events with me, the Kennedy Center, all these fancy things. So I put my profile out there, and literally it has just turned into this series of ridiculous, absolutely nutty encounters. So I thought something was wrong with me. I mean, I was in my 40s. I thought, okay, what in the do I have this big L on my forehead or something? And I would come back to my office, and there was a colleague of mine, and she would come into my office, and I'd tell her the next story, and she would say, Kathy, you have to write a book. You have to write a book. No one's going to believe this. And I said, I don't want anyone to know this happened to me because it's so bizarre. And so basically over the course of time, I kept trying and trying, and I had good dates too, but I had some of the most bizarre stuff. And during COVID, when we were all locked down, she finally said, this is the perfect time. And I said, I think I blocked most of the dates because they were so ridiculously weird. And she said, well, I'll help you remember, because I remember all of them. And I thought, oh my God. So, because, it's just like, because it was fodder for her entertainment and everyone else. And so literally during COVID, I just sat down and I thought, okay, everyone needs a good giggle right now. Everyone is locked out. Everyone needs something to smile and laugh about and to not feel so alone, right? So I just put it together, and I have a friend who's a publishing consultant, like an online self-publishing consultant. So I worked with her. I worked with an editor and put it all together, and it's taken on kind of a life of its own because about 2 weeks after, my friend also mentioned Book Talk on TikTok. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I used to work in TV. I could do little videos and this and that. I'm older. You think you saw people do those crazy dances during COVID, but literally some of my videos with about chapters in my book have over 1 million views.
Wow!
And it's just I hit a nerve because so many people can relate to it, and while it's funny, it's also mortifying, sort of. For me, but it's just amazing how many people have commented and can relate to it, and so that's how it all came to be. I really wasn't planning on writing a book. I've written a poetry book, which is a completely different genre, right? But this is just. It's just been fun and interesting and really a kind of a study in the human condition, because I thought I was alone, but I am not, So
that must have been quite cathartic to kind of get this stuff off your chest, but also realise that you're not alone, and
right.
It's quite common, particularly for people. And did you find it was the things that you're saying that are happening to you, and people were saying, "Yeah, I relate to that"? Was that
100%.
Was that related to the time of life you are, or is that just everybody who does online dating? Is it or a combination of both?
Well, I had in my book, I honestly talk about people in older years, 40s and beyond. But I also mention a girl. 27. I have a horse, so she was at my barn, and she was telling me a story about her. Like, she was with a guy for 2 years, and it started fizzling out, and so they went to dinner one night, and he said to her, look, I need to be honest with you, I'm going to go back to my husband. And she said, what? She had no idea that he was, bi or whatever. And she just completely wigged out, because she said, that's the modern that's very common now. But she had no idea this guy had been married to a man, and she dated him for 2 years, and they had been separated. So I thought, it's just everybody. Everyone has just crazy, crazy stories. So I think it's there's similar stories. I think the one concept that really hit a nerve was the dating scammer part of things. A guy tried to scam me, these romance scammer guys, and I caught him really early into the process. But when I posted about that, that's the video that got like 1 million views and like 20,000 comments, and it's just fascinating to me because you hear about that all the time, the scamming. But the stories are nuts. But it's all ages. I focused on older, but it's everywhere. And I think now too, like you said, dating has changed so much since 20 years ago that it's just very autonomous now.
So for people that aren't au fait with dating scammers, because I'm not, because obviously we're not on any of these sites, how does it, explain this to me, how...
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know how it happens actually, but like even if you're on, for example, what I had was on Match.com. So what they do is they steal profiles. You know, you've seen that show Catfish.
Yeah.
So they steal someone's profile, right? So what happened to me was this guy started contacting me, and I lived in Northern Virginia, which is right by Washington D.C. I worked in D.C. for 20 years, so everything's government, military. There's just tons of that, right? That's everything in D.C. in that area. It's very common. So this man contacted me, and he had about 15 pictures on his profile. And then he started sending me notes, and that's when you really catch it. Like the grammar's off, and they profess their love right away. I mean, you can see this all the time online. But then he said, he was at a military base in D.C., but like the next week, then he was all of a sudden in Afghanistan, and he said, I've just gone out for training, and I've come back, and I'm going to take a warm bath. And I thought, I don't know one soldier or a military person in my life that goes to take a warm. So I thought, that is so bizarre. So anyway, I caught him in it. But what I also found out was that he stole all those pictures. His profile pictures were from a military obituary site.
Oh, wow.
This guy had been, it's horrific. So, I mean, it was funny, but it's not sort of thing. But what happened was all these people commented to me, and I mean, I've read about this. There are like universities in Nigeria where they actually learn how to do this. And one of the funny threads that kept happening was all these people kept commenting about, oh yeah, he's in the military. He is a widow. His child is with his parents. They're taking care of him. He is on a boat in the middle of the ocean. Pirates hijacked the boat, and he needs iTunes cards to get back to shore. And I mean, you think it's ridiculous, but people fall for it. Right. There are like 3 or 4 people that commented on my thread that they'd lost $30,000. They send this money to these people they don't even know. So that's what the scamming. They're scammers. They get their information and then they ask them to send money. And it happens to men, women. It's mostly older people, I would think, but just desperate people. They kind of prey on lonely people, So.
Do you know we get a bit of that on our Facebook page. We get
really,
yeah, because
like Russian women asking.
No. We've got if anybody wants to leave a review on our Facebook page, then head along to facebook.com/mildlypod. There you go. There's a little plug for it. But yeah, in the review section, if there's ever there's guys, they're always like it's a military photograph, and it's always like, oh, please excuse me, but I really find you very attractive, and I've sent you a Facebook friend request, and please, like really kind of humble and kind of, oh, like if you would be so kind as to do this. It's like, oh mate, come on.
That's them.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
They've infiltrated our Facebook page.
Oh my god.
But it's always a reply to somebody's review.
Yeah,
it's never comments. It's never comments on a page because we'd see them. Whereas we don't get an alert if somebody comments on somebody's recommendation or review.
Wow.
So, but we find them. And we get rid of them.
Everywhere.
It's like pest control. Every so often we go in and we
exactly.
We pump some kind of noxious gas or something and get rid of them all, and they're out again. But it's just mad.
The funny thing is, one of my friends who left a review, she sent me a screenshot of this thing and said, "Oh, this is a bit full on." So I looked at it, and then I went to the page and realised the same message had been left under about 30 to 50 different reviews. So
wow.
I sent her a message back saying, "No, I hate to break this to you, but you're not very special." He sent it to everybody. So
you're nothing special.
You're nobody.
This scammer isn't just trying to scam you. He's trying to scam quite a few people. So yeah, I mean, it happens in that way too. But yes, you're right. We do. I do occasionally get an inbox on not on Facebook, but more on TikTok and Instagram because the numbers are bigger. And every so often you'll just get one from and it'll just be like a hi and a little wavy hand, like just literally, obviously, just throwing the bait in, trying to get a bite out of me.
Exactly. Well, one of the women that answered or responded to that, because this thread just kept going about that sort of, I need iTunes cards, blah, blah, blah. And every single one of them had said, oh, I lost my wife in a tragic accident. So it's literally the same script. And so this woman said to me, the last time a guy tried that on me, I literally said to him, you should all start a support group for each other because you've all lost your wives in tragic accidents. You know what I mean? It's like you try to play back on them, but it's really scary sometimes to see how many people fall for it. But it's funny, but it's not. So
it's tragic because there's a lot of people have lost an awful lot of money on that.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned in the book that there was you clearly I don't want you to give too much away about the book because people need to go to Amazon and buy the book. But you were talking about some of the crazy experiences you had in dating. Can you give us the craziest, or go for the second craziest? Keep the craziest for people to read the book. Go for the second craziest.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so it runs the gamut to I think the weirdest one, and it's really inappropriate, but since this is your podcast,
there's nothing inappropriate on this podcast. Don't worry about that. Go for it.
Literally, you go into this not thinking you're ever going to date someone that's. You look for what you look for. You put your profile, what you want, what you don't want. You talk to them on the phone, and so you can never really truly know until you get to the dinner or whatever with somebody. And the worst date, I think I paid more for that website than anything. My cousin convinced me to go on one that you had to pay,
Wow.
And she said, well, the more you pay, the better. I'm like, no, it was the worst one I've ever had. So this man literally showed up in a boot, one of those, boots that after you have surgery on your knee or something.
Oh, yeah.
And he sits down, and we're at a Mexican restaurant. He starts talking about this diabetic ulcer he has on his foot. Like, we're eating Mexican food, and he starts telling me details about this. And I'm thinking, oh my God! And he goes from that to the fact that he got burglarized and his cat got kicked, and then the guts were coming out of the cat.
Wow.
Then he goes to, honestly, this is a professional man. He's a president of a company, so it's not like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? And he went on to tell me about the last 3 women he dated, the last one being a younger woman who got so drunk on 10 rum and cokes during dinner. And I'm thinking, I said to him, well, wouldn't after 3 you would have cut her off? It's like, so it's just interesting the conversation that occurs too. A lot of men, they're nervous, but he informed me that she got so drunk that when he called the taxi to come pick her up, that he brought her to his truck to sit and wait for the taxi because he was done with her, and she attempted to, let's just say, mount the stick shift. And this is my first date with a man.
Whoa!
And this is what he told me on the date. And I literally got up and walked out. And I cried on the way home, and I called my brother, and he told me a funny joke, and he said, they're all jackasses, And I said, so that was literally a true story. It's a true story, and I think... do I put that in a book? Why not, right? But at the same time, you can't believe it. You just can't believe this stuff happens. And
have you got that guy's details? Because I want him on the podcast. I want to know more about that night.
I'm telling you, it's just like, first of all, what is wrong with women? What the hell? What the hell? And second of all, why would this be a conversation he would want to have on a first date to try to impress someone? And I literally was looking at him and the clincher of that date was I remember he started talking about things, and I picked up my margarita to drink it, and it had a big hair on the lime, like God was saying, or the universe was saying, run now, run like the wind. So, I mentioned that in the book too. So that was probably the most mortifying thing that's ever... it's just unbelievable conversation. I've had, of course, men invite you for coffee, and they don't buy the coffee, and they buy theirs, and they go sit down, and everything from that to
Well, so. I'd like to make an appeal to this guy. 2 things. Firstly, can you come on the podcast because I want to know more about that that night. But also, as I say, I'm not an expert on dating, but I want to give him a bit of a tip. If he didn't insist on talking about diabetic ulcers at dinner, then maybe his dates wouldn't prefer to mount the stick shift of his car. Maybe he would get a little bit further down the line with these dates.
Well, it's just so hard to believe anyone would. First of all, that is so bizarre it happened, but second of all, that they would even admit it and talk about it, and I don't know. It was just mortifying. So, that's the worst.
The things you've told us that he mentioned to you on the first date are, even for somebody as inexperienced at dating as I am. I clearly know they are not things you talk about on a first date.
Right.
I mean, they're great for a podcast and a book, so thanks to him for both of those.
Thanks to him, I have a chapter.
Thank you very much. But yeah, hopefully he reads your book and thinks, there's some advice. Don't talk about that shit,
but
mate.
You know what? It happens to men, too. So a couple chapters in my book, I tell men's stories. And if you want to hear one of those, I can share that.
Oh, yes.
A man told me, I had dated him previously, and it's weird because the algorithms on these dating sites kind of reshuffle, right? So we went out, and he was a professor. So he was a professor at a university. I guess he did research on Alzheimer's, and one of the interesting things he told me, we'd never lose our musical memory. And I thought, well, that's very fascinating. And I told him at the second time I got together with him, if I ever get Alzheimer's, I'll be happy because I will forget all these crappy dates I've been on. But he told me that he was, after we dated a while, about 5 months afterward, he popped back up in my, algorithm thing. And so we went out to dinner again, and he was telling me about a woman who he met, who was a pharmacist. Now, she had 3 kids by 3 different baby daddies. And I thought, red flag. He's telling me the story because I'm thinking, this is fascinating to hear it from the man's side, right? So he said he was dating her. He thought they were monogamous. They were seeing each other. And 5 months into it, or 4 months into it, he said they went to a conference in California, came back, and everything was copacetic. He said, so one Friday, he knew she had the day off, so he went to her house to surprise her. And this is a true story. He walked up to the door. Her car was in the driveway. He knocked on the door, and he had flowers and the whole dang thing. And it took her a really long time to come to the front door. She opens the door in a cheerleading outfit. And I was like, I said, what? And he said, yeah. And he asked her what she was doing. She was in there having a threesome with 2 of her 3 exes. And I mean, I swear to God, this is a true story. And he said he just stood there thinking, I thought we were monogamous. I can't believe this happened. And he said, I just turned around and walked away. And she tried to get a hold of him, saying it's nothing, it didn't mean anything. And I said, well, but she was in a cheerleading outfit? And he said, well, part of one. And then, of course, I said, well, and she didn't invite you in? And I said, so it was just so bizarre. So
it was only for exes.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's like you
3 is the magic number, not 4.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, though? It's just like, oh, my God. So I think, he didn't see, but he said he went to the clinic the next day, to get all the testing done because God only knows what else she'd been doing in the meantime. But, again, this is, it happens to men and women. So it's just a really nutty time. And I can't really tell you the reason for it other than the online sites are autonomous, right? You don't really know what people are really doing, so they swipe and...
How much do you put down to some of these bizarre stories in some of the men that you've dated or gone on dates with, just purely down to nerves? Because I realise as well that obviously some people just come out with some really bizarre stuff when they're nervous.
Yep. Well, I think I found that men do get nervous, so they talk, and that's fine. But then they share way too much. It's like, okay, I don't need to know about your diabetic ulcer or the cat that had the guts coming out of it. I really, I just don't. I don't need to know that. So, I do think it comes down to nerves. I think both sides, right? But I do think it's sort of a bizarre.
I kind of get the impression. It's just. Sorry, I got to get the impression Mr. Stickshift was just trying to set the bar really low to make you feel more comfortable.
I don't know. Setting the bar really low. That could be taken a different way. No, but I mean,
I think you're being very charitable there, Baz, and it's to your credit.
But then, worse than that, he said, oh, after that happened, I had to run by 7-Eleven and get some bleach and some paper towels. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to know that. I don't want to know that. And then I stood up and I was like,
it could have been worse.
Yeah,
it could have been worse. He could have cleaned it in a different way, and he could have talked you through it. So you know what I mean?
Jesus. Yeah. No thanks. So anyway, it's just, and again, my friend convinced me to write all these stories down because what I found also is I thought I was alone in the craziness. And I get these stories from people on TikTok, and you're like, oh my! And you can go on. TikTok has a subculture for everything on the planet. My son told me that. So you go on there and you listen to these young people talk about it. And it's even more bizarre because you have the ghosting and the hookup stuff, and it's just crazy. All the sites that they can go on, it's Yeah, and you said it yourself that it has changed so much. When we were young, I mean, I have a friend in her 60s. She actually met her husband through a personal ad. Where we had to write a letter, put a stamp, mail it, call. Actually, so yeah, it's different.
As far as I can see, is that like modern dating is like old dating, but just much quicker. The process is just way, way faster.
Right.
So obviously, having not experienced it, in theory, I can see a lot of benefit from that because when we were dating, you'd go to a bar or a club, and you'd find someone you found physically attractive, make your way over there, try to talk to them, and maybe they weren't interested. They'd go, and then it's the next one, and things like this, and then and obviously it gets if the club shuts at 2, then you panic a bit at 1:45. Your standards drop,
right.
and it's. But all of these things are much, much quicker. So if you're on Tinder and you're swiping one way or the other, don't know which way it is, but if you're just going through the same process, but way, way quicker. So you just it's as if 20 years ago we were in a club just walking up and going, I like you, do you like me? No. Okay, we haven't matched, bye. And then just
exactly.
It would have been far more efficient to do it that way, but you would have looked really weird. But that's the way it kind of works now. And also, so yeah, it's just getting through the whole, because look, whichever way you look at it, finding your one is just a numbers game. Okay, right. They're definitely, look, there's 7.5 billion people on the planet. There is definitely somebody for everybody, but it's just how do you get through all the shit before you find them? And I was just blessed that There's a mad kind of sliding doors style story about how me and my wife got together, and we always kind of say, well, if that hadn't happened, and all that, I kind of just look at all the different scenarios, and we just feel so blessed and so lucky that happened and our paths crossed when they did, right. How they did, and all that, because so many people don't get that opportunity and they don't find right. the one they're looking for. But I just think if you've got the opportunity just to literally whiz through because I think Tinder gets a lot of stick for being superficial, which it is. But I think at first you've got to find somebody you find physically attractive who finds you physically attractive back before you can then have the conversation to find out if you're compatible, kind of emotionally, intellectually. You get a sense of humour and all that kind of stuff. So I just think it is just literally a much, much quicker way of doing it the way we did, which was walk up, I find that person attractive, see if they find me attractive or not. And it might be, in the old days, a slap on the face or a fuck off, I'm not interested. Do you know what I mean? Which to be honest, is much harsher than somebody just not matching with you. Do you know what I mean?
True. But, I think you said something really interesting, and that the fact that you're in the physical presence of someone when 20 years ago, you actually saw them interact with other people. You heard their inflection of their voice. You saw how they conducted themselves amongst other people. And this can be so autonomous. And like I said, everybody that you swipe on, they might be good looking. But again, I always put exactly what I was looking for, what I didn't. But as soon as you get them in person and you have to, have a coffee with them or something, you really find out how they are. And I think there's something to be said for back in the day when you actually had to physically be in their presence, And so, again, I don't mind online dating. I mean, like I said, I had a lot of good dates, but I had a lot of really funky ones. And I do think there's something to be said also for texting and all that stuff. I mean, you don't know where they are, really. You don't know. I mean, I've had friends who had cheating and all the whole thing, and you don't hear the inflection in their voice on the phone. And so there's just a difference. But I do agree with you that it does speed up the process. Now, I've tried speed dating a couple times. That's funny as heck, But I do agree with you. It is a faster way to do it. But again, you still have to get in their physical presence and see what they're like as a person, right? So,
because you mentioned catfishing before, and I was just thinking, obviously back in the day, if you were just out in a bar, then catfish. I started to think that catfishing didn't exist, but probably due to a combination of alcohol and makeup, I've definitely woken up with women I didn't go to bed with. Definitely, I was definitely catfished in real life. Do you know what I mean? I have definitely.
Like, wait a minute.
That has definitely happened.
Right. They always say you look better after 3 beers than
look.
whatever.
I remember I was in Australia. I was meeting. I was meeting up with family that I'd never met before, and they said, "Look, there's a girl who's down the street who is the same sort of age as you, and she's going on a weekend trip to a place called Albany in Western Australia." And she said, "She's invited you along." So I was like, "Yeah, cool." So anyway, I went out for the night and stayed in somebody's apartment. We went out and I met somebody that evening. Brought her back. Things may or may not have happened. I'm not saying that to be vague. I don't remember. But yeah, the following morning, they said, "Oh, I won't say her name, but said, oh, such and such is coming around tomorrow." I was like, "Oh yeah, she's really nice. I really liked her." And they went, "Really?" I was like, "We're not being offensive, but nobody has ever said that about her. It's just like, no." And she came through the door, and God bless her. She came through the door, and I was like, "I'm just going to get in the shower." And this is 18-year-old Mike. Okay, so don't judge me, but it's the longest shower I've ever had. I literally stayed in the shower until she got the message and left. I was in the shower for about 2 hours, just because I didn't have the balls to go, "Do you know what?
Nah.
I might have had the beer goggles on last night. I don't find you attractive. I'm sorry."
Oh my gosh.
So yeah. So that, I mean, look, catfishing did exist. It just wasn't as obvious and as and as prevalent, I think.
Well, I guess as well, because you get to write and form your own profile, you can make it as attractive as you want to, can't you? So this is the thing. So you can write all the things that you think somebody else might want, and obviously when you finally meet that person for a date, and they suddenly realise, "Oh, I wrote all these things. This lady on the other side of me, I wrote them for her. That's not actually how I feel." And of course, that's the moment when the catfish side of it comes out, I guess, isn't it?
Sure. Well, I say in my book, the first profile I ever wrote, it was very funny because I was very excited, and my friends helped me write it. And so I put a picture on my profile of myself on a cruise. I have my arm back, and I have a sundress, and I have a little boobage, and all that stuff. And it wasn't anything crazy, but on the very first comment I ever got on a profile, it was a dating site, was from a guy, and all he said was "nice jugs," and that's all. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then I was offended, but then I thought, well, what? And so that was the beginning of the end, kind of, for me, because I thought that is an interesting comment, and he had the fish picture, he was holding the fish, and so.
This is where I get confused, because obviously I'm from dating 20 years ago, and that was one of my best lines. You know what I mean? That was one of my icebreakers.
Well, if he would have embellished and said something more than that, I could tell he was just limited in vocabulary with his, but that's all he said. He didn't say anything else. He didn't carry on. He didn't, So it was a little bit crazy at that. But yeah, it's you just never know, and you have to be really careful too, because no matter what you put on there. Again, meeting in person is key to getting to know the person. So
see, there's another thing that I think that I'm not. That I kind of feel sorry for people who are dating in the modern societies, because, like I say, back in like the 90s or whatever. If I wanted to show a woman that I was interested in her and see if she was interested in me, I might walk up with a drink in my hand and go put my arm around her waist and just kind of say hi or say hello. I mean, you could possibly get arrested for that these days, couldn't you? It's just like,
sure.
it's the unwelcome advances and things like that. But that was literally a way, and the woman would just go, "Yeah, fuck off, I'm not interested." Well, all right, sorry. Right. And do you know what I mean? There was nothing more than that. It was an actual process to go through to see if somebody was interested or not. Whereas now, I just I
do say in my book, one of my friends, he when I was writing the book, and he said, Kathy, one of the hardest parts for men now is that we don't know how to be we don't know what to do. He said, because I get yelled at if I open a door for a woman, and I get yelled at if I don't open a door for a woman. So that's the whole other
Don't go anywhere with doors,
you know?
I think is the answer to that one.
Well, there you go. That's the answer to that. But I have to say, one of the other chapters of my book, and what you're talking about things back then and now, and it's called the Johnson Gallery. And basically, when I was going through this phase of about a year, it was literally, I would talk to a man. I would eventually give them my phone number, right? So they would text. The first thing I would get from them, what do you think it was?
A dick pic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank God for that. Do you know what? When you said Johnson Gallery, I immediately thought, is that lots of dick pics? So I'm really glad that is exactly what you meant, and not that I've just turned that into something much seedier than it was. That it was exactly that seedy.
It was just like, are you really kidding me? I mean, literally before they even said anything, boom, here it is. And I said it was the modern day Hallmark card, right? It's like, I just want to send this to you first, and my friends and I would laugh about it. I would be driving down the highway on a work call with a friend, and I'd get a text from somebody. I'd say, you better look at it because I don't want to look, and it was really kind of interesting because I thought, why would that be the first thing you sent me before we even meet in person? You know what I mean? I guess it's like preliminary, approval or something, pre-approval. But it was comical. It was very comical. So yeah.
See, that is a thing that obviously there were camera phones around before me and my wife got together, but not. I mean, it was early. I mean, if you'd have taken a dick pic, it could have been anything. Do you know what I mean? The quality of the quality of the camera on that,
exactly.
It could have been.
What am I looking at? Yeah,
It's just like, that's not even give you a clue. It is a dick. Not how good. Not you're not even going to know it is a dick, let alone how good a one it is. So yeah, that wasn't a thing before me and my wife got together. So I've never sent one. Because my wife's clearly not interested in receiving one of those. She's like,
she's been there, done that.
I know
honey.
what it looks like. I see it all the fucking time. I don't want a text with it on. All right. So that's kind of passed me by. So I think that is the reason that I just don't get it. I
don't either.
Don't get it. Because, and maybe this is my kind of traditional old school head here as a heterosexual guy. But if a woman sent me a picture of her tits, I would be like, that's brilliant, thanks. But dicks are so ugly. I just don't think... I've no idea. Obviously, I'm not a heterosexual woman, so I can't say, or a gay man, so I can't say whether someone's gone, I like that. Is it something people enjoy receiving those pics, or is it just?
I didn't, because it's kind of shocking too. And you're sitting in your office, thinking you're making a lunch date, and all of a sudden you're like, "Whew, wow," So yeah.
This is just to use the just that escalated quickly.
We've discussed this before. I've actually been sent like a fair number of dick pics since I've been on social media. It's such a weird thing. So I've got a small idea of what it's like.
I thought you were going to say I've got a small Johnson Gallery.
Yeah. Well, I do. There's only 3 or 4 in there, but it's big enough for me to work.
I like that, Baz. I like the thought you've got an actual Johnson Gallery, Baz. That you've framed them and you've got them in one of the rooms of the house.
Oh my God! Well, one of the guys, one of the chapters, if you want, one of the guys I dated was a chiropractor. Nice guy. And all of a sudden one day he started sending me pictures of the number 8, right? I had seen him for like a week. And I was like, am I missing a holiday? Like he sent me a screenshot of the date. It was November 8th. And then he was driving and it was 88 miles an hour. And I was like, I mean, and he was a professional guy and never insinuated anything weird. And I was like, God, I can't figure this out. I mean, like, what? So I texted him. I said, I don't understand. What is this about? He goes, well, that's how big I am. I was like, what? I mean, this guy, he was literally driving down to his grandson's house to go put a Thomas the Train bed together for his daughter. And I'm thinking, you can be a chiropractor sending these crazy, crazy insinuations to... sexual insinuations to someone while you're driving down to put your grandson's, Thomas the Train bed together. So anyway, yeah, it's just, people are nutty.
Do you know what? I forgot for a minute there that the USA is still on imperial measurements, because I was like, in centimetres, that's not that good, to be fair. That's not something to be boasting about, pal.
So, again, it's always shocking, but it's funny, but it's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? He's 55 years old or something, and I'm thinking, this really? So, yeah.
Do you know what? I think sending cryptic messages of how big that guy's cock is weirder than just sending a picture. I think.
Well, and again, it was like I couldn't figure out the 8 reference, and I'm thinking I thought I was forgetting a holiday or something. I'm like, I don't get it. What is this? And it was just random. He just started sending me these 8s, and I was like, okay, oh my God, yeah, it's just crazy out there.
He was clearly proud of that number.
He was very proud of that number.
But like I say, that is a look. I think that's creepier than just sending a picture, because it's just like, oh, here's all these. It's almost kind of, I don't know.
A lot of effort to get a message across,
Yeah, that feels like almost like the a kind of a serial killer. You know when he's the 8 killer or something like that. He's got a thing.
That's a movie. I
think I've just invented a movie. To be fair, when you said he sent me the 8, I thought, how big is it if he's been able to form it into the number 8? I mean, that is some skills.
That's a long one.
I'm not being funny. If I could form mine into the number 8, I'd send a picture to everybody.
You'd be very popular. Oh my God, that's funny.
No, yeah, and we should sort of clarify that the movie 7 isn't about dicks.
That's right. We have to clarify that.
Baz, anyone can make it look like a number 7, Baz. That's far too easy.
There's no curves or anything.
That's easy. Even if it's just a little 7, it's easy enough, that one, I reckon.
Oh Lord! Oh my God, that's funny.
Just getting back to what you mentioned earlier about, the amount of effort. If it wasn't for the digital age and sort of digital photography, none of this would take place, because I think men are far too lazy to take a Polaroid of their own dick, put it in an envelope and send it to somebody. It would just never happen, would it? It's just
Can you imagine that? That's so true. Back in the day, licking the envelope, putting the stamp on, and God.
Not only that, but taking a picture, winding the film on, click,
sending it to photo,
taking it down to the shop, and then taking it down to the shop and having to go in and you go, yep, they're mine. They're mine. Yes, yes. That. I know I didn't quite manage it, but that's supposed to be a number 8 on that one.
Oh my God, that's funny.
You can imagine.
That would have been more effort for sure. But again, like I said, my friend did the, personal ads, and I actually posted a TikTok the other day. How you can duet with somebody, and someone had posted a very funny 80s maybe, those video dating things where the guys are sitting there. I'm Bob, and oh my God, it's hysterical. And we've been through different phases with the dating stuff. But now again, I dated. I was married once. I almost got married twice, but he passed away. So I then kind of was very tentative to embark on, especially since my son went to college and all that. And I went into it as an optimist, I'm still an optimist about things, but it's crazy out there. It's just crazy.
One thing I'm going to ask is your tips on
okay.
dating tips, because we've called it the...
I thought he said tits for a second.
That'll
help in any regard. No,
well, I said I was going to...
That always helps. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I said I was going to delete this, but I was going to cut this bit out of it, but I can't now, can I?
Maybe I won't.
That's definitely going to make it into the final podcast. No, I didn't say that. I said what we want to do is move on to your tips. Tips for dating, not tits. We're not moving on to your tits. That's not how this works. But Kathy, what I would like you to do is I would like you to give our listeners and viewers a couple of your best tips for dating.
Well, I think after a long time of doing this, I think one of the things you have to have is a sense of humor. You really have to have a sense of humor and just levity. You have to know that everyone has been through stuff up to this point. And I also mentioned this in the book is, at this stage, people have been married once, twice, sometimes 3 times, no lie, or more. They have 35-year-old kids and 2-year-olds from a rebound marriage, right? I mean, you just never know. So I think you have to go into it with a sense of humor, first of all. And also just knowing that everyone has been through stuff. We all have baggage. And my friend's grandma used to say it really well. She said, everyone in life is walking around dragging their little red wagon behind them of all their baggage, and you just have to be able to find someone who you can walk next to with your baggage, and they're going to be happy to help you unpack it, so that kind of thing. You have to be willing to understand that people have been through quite a bit by 40, 50, and beyond. And I just think you just have to know what you want.
Some people are dragging their surgical boot with a diabetic ulcer in it.
And guts from a cat. That's right.
Well, you didn't tell us he kept them. Now that is weird. If he's kept them like in a bag or something, then that's very weird.
I still, honestly, the funny thing is, I still get the reason I had trouble writing the book really because I have it's like almost a comedic PTSD from it. It's almost like I don't want to remember that. I don't want to admit that this happened. I don't want to tell people. But again, it's funny, and if people can get a good giggle, I'm happy about that. But yeah, I just think really the most important thing is a sense of humor. And now I actually, speaking of that, I started talking to a man because my friends convinced me to try another site and didn't go well. But anyway, and he was a doctor, and all of a sudden he said, well, we talked a couple of times. He got back to me, and he said, I really, really admire you. I'm really impressed. I want to see you. But he says, I'm really afraid of you. He said, because you wrote that book. And because he went online, got the book, and read it. He says, I don't want to be in the next chapter. And I'm like, oh, well, there goes my dating life. No. So, again, you just have to, honestly, I think that's the most important thing. And just be open to everybody's story. Everyone has a story, and you just have to understand it.
Surely the answer to that is when you are dating, and somebody says, "Oh, I don't want to be in the next chapter." You say, "Well, just don't be a dick then."
Or send me a dick pic.
Or don't send me a dick pic, and then you won't be.
Do you know what? I'll tell you how not to be in my next book. Be charming, romantic, polite, generous. Do all of those things. You won't come you won't come anywhere close to my next book.
That's right. Well, actually, my book went number 1 like 2 weeks ago on Amazon again. So
awesome.
Yeah, it's just funny. It's just like, oh my God. But again, sense of humor, and that people might think, oh, this is mortifying. Why would you even write this book? And some of the Amazon reviews say that, and I'm like, well, honey, it's because So this is why I did, because it's pretty crazy out there. So
have you since the book's come out, have you heard from other people relaying their sort of bizarre dates to you as well? I'm sure you must have done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
On especially on TikTok.
Yeah.
TikTok's crazy anyway, but I really enjoy it. Actually, I really, and I think I have 7,000 followers in less than a year. I mean, it's been fun. Oh yeah. I mean, it's just people. I think that's the weirdest thing about it. It's like, what are we doing? Why did you do this? So it's just, I've heard a lot of different stories. A lot of people are frustrated, but a lot of people are in the same boat, and here's the other concept is women, as we get older, sometimes, I'm financially independent, not on alimony or anything like that, but that's another concept, like in our age range and older, we come from that really probably the last generation in the United States anyway, where women stayed home. I mean, when I was a kid, my mom stayed home, my dad worked, and it's old fashioned, yes it is. But guys who grew up from that era, that's still something in their head. So it's very confusing. Like, I have 2 friends who pay alimony to their ex-husbands. That's the reality of life, So it's all convoluted now, and
see that's the part of sexual inequality that women didn't want, but they got it anyway.
Hello, surprise!
Unlucky. Well, you wanted it, now you've got it.
You got it. That's right. So it's confusing too. I think it's for men and women. People on TikTok we went into this huge conversation about if a guy asked you to dinner and then expected you to pay half, and I think no, if he invited me to dinner, I would expect him to pay. But that's also something now, women get offended if they don't ask you to pay. I mean, it's just crazy. You can't win.
Oh,
Really.
I remember that story of the guy that went on a couple of dates, and when she eventually said, "Look, I don't think we're going to see anymore," he sent her all the bills for all the
Oh,
dinners.
jeez.
Have you seen that?
I've invested a significant amount of money in this, and I'd like it all back.
Yes.
I would like it all back. Well, there was a TikTok the other day where a guy went on a date with a girl, and he went to the bathroom and didn't come back, and it left her with a $135 bill, and she was ranting and raving on TikTok. Well, then he got on there to defend himself. He said, "Look, I bought a $10 burger. She ordered a bottle of wine and the most expensive thing on the menu." And I thought, I don't know who's going to win in that argument, but he walked out and left her with the bill.
I think he's done well there. I think he's done well there. He's got, hold on, I've bought a burger. She's bought a. It's like, I ain't paying this. I'm just like,
Well,
this is well worth like crawling out of the window of the bathroom. That's exactly what I'd have done. That's the equivalent of having the 2-hour shower to
exactly.
so
There
she
you go.
gets the message. That's definitely the coward's way out. It's like, I'm not paying for this. I'm going.
That's true. I mean, I did walk out on the stick shift guy, but that was mortifying.
So talk us through how you walked out with him, though. Was it just did you kind of just say, "This is it, I'm done," and walk out, or did I'm just going to the bathroom and then disappear?
No, I was sitting there, and he basically, so he had talked about the last 3 women he dated. Okay, one was, let's see, I'm trying to remember now. One was a former Miss Colorado who was divorced and got $13,000 a month in alimony, and she had this beautiful house, but they would go on dates, and she would drink 2 bottles of wine by herself. And so he broke up with her. I'm thinking, I did this date at this kind of medium-sized restaurant. I'm thinking, shoot, I could have got a nice steak dinner for what he was paying for that woman to go. And then he talked about...
Sorry, Catherine, I don't mean to interrupt, but just before you go on, he split up with someone for something I would high-five a woman for.
But he was paying for it. He said their dates would cost him $300, minimum, because
I'm reversing back again. He was right. I'm sorry.
So... and again, I'm thinking, wow. And here I am sitting here having, fried beans and rice. And anyway, but so he had prefaced it with these other 2 women, that he had dated. And then, the bingo was the 3rd one. And I literally was just sitting there. And again, this was also prefaced by the whole story about how he got this diabetic ulcer, and this woman that lived above him was really heavy, and she would do this exercise program, and he was always afraid this picture was going to fall off of his wall. And one night he walked in, and sure enough, this picture had fallen off the wall. He walked over the glass after he'd taken his shoes off, and it stuck in his foot. So it started with that. And then he talked about the diabetic ulcer, and then he talked about his divorce and his kids and his wife who had left, and he didn't know where they went for a month. And then he got burglarized, and then he figured out the burglar kicked the cat when he was burglarizing the house, and then the guts were all over the house. I mean, so this was like a lead up to, then the hair on the margarita, and the universe was just. So I just sat there and I looked at him. I just said, you know what, I can't do this. I'm done. This is disgusting. And I'm gone. So
I can't work out what was wrong with him. It sounds very interesting.
Oh my God! It was just like one thing after the other, and it was just.
So yeah, you just said, "This isn't working. I'm done and I'm gone," and you stood up and walked out.
Oh, I said I don't need to hear about someone sticking a stick shift in her hoo-ha or whatever. And I said, I don't even know why you would think this is okay to talk about this. And so yeah, I did. I got in my car, called my brother, who's always, my voice of reason, and he told me a joke and reminded me some of these guys are jackasses, and just kind of, but it was pretty interesting. So, it was the whole date. It wasn't just that story. It was like story after story.
You've definitely gone through there, red flag after red flag after red flag after red flag. So nobody listening or watching blames you for standing up and getting the fuck out of there, because that was just no. You 100%. It was the mildly controversial podcast officially endorses you standing up and walking out of that day. It was the right thing to do.
I'm assuming there isn't a review like for people on these dating sites like there is for like Airbnb, is there? So
Well, you know what I just found out, and someone mentioned this on my TikTok, is our Facebook groups called "Are We Dating the Same Guy?"
Oh right, okay.
And you put it in, "Are we dating the same guy?" in like I'm in Littleton, Colorado, and I did it the other day just for shits and giggles, and you can't believe these women are posting pictures of these guys. I'm dating this guy. Are you dating him? And I was like, oh my God, that's really interesting.
Wow.
Because I thought it's probably smart to do it, but it's also kind of weird. But yeah. So that's the only thing I've ever heard of. But I do think that would not be a bad idea, But again,
it would make a lot of
this
sense.
Facebook group,
it would make an absolute huge amount of sense because I mean you have to review you review somebody, you buy something from eBay, you review somebody like an Uber driver,
right.
You review the the Just Eat or Deliveroo or whatever the restaurant that gets the food delivered to you. Why would you not review a date? That just makes
that's why I'm so shocked. I'm shocked by these Facebook things because you can go into any town and put it in, and it's almost like a review, right? I think the rules are you can't really disparage people or anything, but just say, yeah, I'm dating this guy. I would not recommend it or whatever. And I just found that out last week. So yes, Baz, I think that's the only thing I've heard of, but I think they do exist. So.
I'm so glad I was unaware of this Facebook group, but I'm so worried now that I'm just going to spend all my time photoshopping myself into pictures with these guys and say, I've been with him as well, and sending it into this group and say, yes, I'm dating him. I'm also dating him and him and him, and spend my whole time with like photoshopping me with my arm around these guys.
So, but I think it's interesting. I mean, I think that's kind of new. I've never heard of it until just recently. So I do think it's sort of new, but it's not a bad idea,
I've got a question for you. In the process of writing this book, have you now kind of, knowing the pitfalls, obviously you're probably more able to avoid the people that you don't want to put in your next book if there's going to be another chapter, but have you found dating any better since writing the book?
I haven't really focused on it during COVID and everything. It was kind of weird, I was seeing someone for a while before COVID, but that didn't go anywhere. But I did try Bumble just recently, and I think the women get to make the decision or whatever. I didn't have any luck on there, and I'm over 50, so that's also a thing, right? But I definitely find it to be better because I can just, I know what I want and I don't want. It's just my patience level is kind of zero, really. So, but I do find that I know what I do and don't want to be involved with. And again, until you meet the person in person, no matter what they say on the profile, you just never know.
There is one thing that I want to cover just before we wrap up, and that is you mentioned briefly in our conversation. This is a weird thing, right? I hadn't even thought of this, but we connected through what is effectively a podcast dating website, and it's a website called Matchmaker.fm where podcasters and potential guests can communicate with each other and connect with each other. And we found you through there. We found a lady called Dana Pereira through there, and she's been on twice. Our guest on one of a show that we're going to record on Saturday has come from there. It's only just occurred to me now that is like a dating website for podcast people. But in our communication through that, before getting you on the show, you said the phrase, "Ask me about my friend who went on a sex rampage after her divorce."
Okay.
So this is me officially asking you, tell us about your friend who went on a sex rampage. I mean, that sounds like a headline in... that sounds like a clickbait.
Does
it sounds like a clickbait headline to get a sex rampage. I want to know more about that. I do want to know more about that, Catherine. So please tell me more about that.
Okay, so I moved back to Colorado from Virginia in from Virginia in 2014. Got together I went to Columbine High School, by the way, back in the day when Jesus walked the earth. But we had a reunion, and I saw this woman that I knew since I was a kid. We said, "Oh, let's go have a drink, talk about." We go to this local place, and she's sitting there telling me, "Well, I was with my husband for 12 years, and they had a son." And she said, "But the sex life was so bad, blah, blah, blah." She says, "But you know what? I got on Match.com, and after we divorced, I slept with 20 guys in 6 months." And I looked at her and I said, what? Because we lived 2 blocks from each other. And therefore, I was on Match.com. And therefore, we were in the same age range. And therefore, any guy that we're going to date is probably in this. Those guys that she's sleeping with are going to be the guys that I probably match with. And I said, you know what? That's a dating pool I don't want to be swimming in, because it's like that, you know what I'm saying? It's like, why would you do that in the first place? But that's what I'm saying. It's not just men that are nutty now. It's like the women have lowered the bar to a point of, you don't, just like the cheerleading, pharmacist or whatever. You just don't know. And I thought that was so disturbing to me, because I thought, this woman isn't 20. She's like in her late 40s at that point. And she's going out and just boom, 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 And I'm thinking, again, that's my dating pool. And so literally the percentage of men that would be matching to me, and, so it was quite a rampage. I mean, I thought, in my opinion, 20 guys in 6 months, that's a pretty good percentage right there. But that it's also disturbing to me to think that that's what's going on, and that's one woman, right? So if you think about, okay, say someone else is going off the deep end after a divorce, you got 5 women doing that, and then I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't even want to tip my toe in the pool. You know what I'm saying? So it's really quite disturbing, but also, again, a really interesting study in the human condition, because I think, who knows if this has always been the case, right? I mean, who knows if just this all social media has brought all this stuff out that we're seeing, or so it was quite disturbing to find that out.
It sounds to me like she knew that you were local and also on Match.com, and she's just gone round hell for leather trying to get first dibs on all these boys before you had a go.
But where's it first dibs? That's what that's what's going on, right?
She just wanted to get in before you. She wanted to make sure.
I don't want any of those dibs. I want none of those dibs. None of them.
I immediately thought for 1 second there, I don't know this woman's name, but she wasn't Stick Shift Girl, was she?
Well, no, she was not. No. Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge.
You never know. She wouldn't have bothered with the men. She'd have been all around all the car dealerships.
Telling you, there you go, right? God help us, oh my Lord.
So, Catherine, if anyone wants to find out some more details about you, where's the best place they can find you?
Well, my website is catherineberra.com, and I'm on Amazon as well. The books are on Amazon, and I'm working on a sequel to the comedy book based on the dating scammer part of things. And I'm also working, believe it or not, on a humor book about dying, because my parents have both passed in the last couple of years, and just the weird and crazy things that happen before people pass with regard to family members and nutty things that occur. So those are the 2 things I'm working on, and a screenplay, but I'm a writer, so I work on all sorts of stuff. But CatherineBerra.com is my website.
Well, I'm going to go to CatherineBerra.com. Not now, obviously we're still chatting. That would be rude if I just went onto your website now. I've got other commitments in terms of chatting to you and closing the podcast. That's all we've got time for this week. Thanks so much, Catherine. I'm so pleased.
You're welcome.
Like you say, like I said before, we connected through what is effectively a podcasting dating website. Putting guests together with podcasters and so on. So that I would suggest that there is an equal amount of jeopardy in connecting with somebody like this. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know if the date's going to go well or so on. The dates in inverted commas. But thankfully, if I was to write a book about the crazy people that I'd met through getting guests for the podcast, you wouldn't be on that. On that, because thoroughly enjoyed your company. It's been brilliant. Really, really enjoyed it. It's been really, really interesting. And so glad that we connected through the kind of podcast datey kind of website.
Yes.
Thing. So
thanks. I really appreciate you having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks so much. So just to reiterate, and just to remind you that you need to get along to Amazon, and I'm looking down because I've got it open so I get the exact name of the book correct. So you need to get onto Amazon, and you need to we'll put a link on it in the Facebook and wherever we can put a link to it. I don't really know where we can put a link to it, but I'll try. So, the name of the book is These Stories Are True, I Shit You Not. A humorous look at online dating for the unsuspecting older human. I'm pretty confident that if you put that exact string of English words together, you're going to get right there. There's no way that string of English words has ever been used for something other than your book. So, and just in case you're struggling, type in Catherine R Berra, which is Berra. They're definitely going to find you now.
That's how I found you.
There you go. There you go, you see. All good, all good. So, again, thank you so much for your time. Baz, thanks again. Really enjoyed that one. And hopefully our listeners and our viewers, whether they are of our age group or younger, have got a few tips with a TIPS out of that. And they're able to go into the dating world with added confidence, and will hopefully not. If they read your book, they will obviously be able to avoid some pitfalls as well. So, thanks again, and we will see you all next time.